And I just have been having to reckon with this and ask myself the question of like, are you ready to lose proximity to thinness? Because I will tell you that the way people treat me when I'm at a lower weight versus when I'm at a higher weight is like night and day. Are you still willing to commit to recovery even when you're not skinny anymore? Hello everybody, I have my Christmas coffee, I have my, I'll show you. Guess what I'm wearing, which is what I'm always wearing. Snoopy! Okay, what I wanted to talk about today is something I've kind of been thinking about a lot and struggling with a lot. And I'm gonna put a trigger warning for eating disorders, talking about weight loss, anything like that. And kind of just give an honest update of where I am with all of that, because for those of you who don't know, I've struggled with eating disorders and disordered eating on and off for years, and I went officially into recovery my senior year of high school, and now I'm a senior in college. And I have honestly been struggling a little bit lately. When I came back to school this year, because I had to leave my home to go to school, obviously, I don't know why that, I forgot to pack my birth control. I take a birth control pill every day, and it just killed my appetite. And suddenly I was barely able to eat anything, and I just like had no like appetite anymore. And I was like, is that normal? Like, a lot of people go off birth control and then they gain weight, and I don't know. After I went through that and had become kind of used to like not eating much for about a month or so before I got my pill back, it was difficult to go back on the pill. And I wish I could say that the potential effects you could have on my appetite and my weight didn't play a role in that, but it did. And I did go back on the pill. I have had more of an appetite, but I've still lost around pounds since coming back to school. And it's been bringing up a lot of really difficult things, because I'm still eating enough, but I have noticed that there's a lot more noise about it in my head, and a lot more like consciousness about my body and food that I didn't want. But I think that is something that is natural, that comes with any time your body changes. And I think it's so interesting, because we know like your weight is supposed to fluctuate, or like your appetite is supposed to your appetite is gonna fluctuate. Like, some days you're gonna have days where you're not hungry at all, but it's so much easier to have a day where you're not hungry at all, or a phase where your weight is lower than normal, than it is to have a day where you're super hungry, or where your weight is on the higher end of what it normally is. Like, both are normal and healthy, and neither is good or bad, but because of how we've been conditioned to look at food and our bodies and calories and weight and all of that, it makes it so much harder to accept the fluctuation that we've been conditioned to see as negative. Because I am like in my set point range, like, I'm not gonna say numbers obviously, but their set point theory is basically, for anyone who doesn't know, it's the idea that like everybody's body has a weight that it wants to be, like a weight range, and so your body will fight to stay at that weight. And so there's a low end of that range and a higher end of that range, and your body will fight to stay within that window, which means that like when you try to lose weight by like not eating a lot, your appetite will like ramp up, because your body wants the calories, it wants the food, it wants to stay, it's doing what it can to stay in that area. And likewise, if you eat like too much or more than your body wants, like your appetite's gonna be lower, because whatever. And so I am in that range where like nobody would necessarily know that I was struggling if I didn't say it, because the way we talk about eating disorder recovery is, it's really an ongoing thing, but the way the world sees it is like, if your body looks healthy or looks like it's a normal weight, you know, all of that in quotes, people don't think you have a problem. And oftentimes you can exhibit the same behaviors as someone in a higher weight body that someone in an emaciated body could exhibit, and when you are in the higher weight body, nobody bats an eye. Or like, they might even think you have really good willpower, or like you eat so healthy, or you have such good discipline. Like, I remember seeing this quote kind of early on in my recovery, which was like, eating disorders are what we diagnose in thin people and what we prescribe to fat people. And there's just so much like overlap between diet culture and what's seen as like normal food behaviors. Like, I just hate when I talk about how I struggle with like food and body image and someone's like, yeah, well, every woman does, or like, yeah, everybody does, or like, don't we all? And it's kind of like, yeah, but we shouldn't. Like, I know I've talked about that before, but I don't know. After gaining about like pounds last year, and then now to be going through a phase where I'm like losing weight again, it has made some things difficult. Like, if I want to eat more, I'm like, oh no, because like now I don't want to gain weight again. And I just have been having to reckon with this and ask myself the question of like, are you ready to lose proximity to thinness? Because I will tell you that the way people treat me when I'm at a lower weight versus when I'm at a higher weight is like night and day. Like, people are like telling me how I can lose weight, people are telling me what I should do and like how much I should be eating and what I should not be eating, and it's just feels so bad. Like, even without that pressure, just the kind of comments I get and the feedback I get on food and my body when I'm at a higher weight would be enough to make me not want to be that way, because it feels so bad to be on the receiving end of. And I want to acknowledge that I do have thin privilege, and like, even when my weight has been like overweight according to the BMI, which is stupid and not real and whatever, I know that even then I do have like straight size privilege or like thin privilege, and I know that other people have experiences that are a lot more difficult. And so when I talk about these things, I'm talking about it in my experience, and I'm not trying to say that my experience is any worse or easier or harder than anyone else's. Or I guess I would say that it's easier, because like the harassment and bullying and like medical mistreatment and way like larger people are treated in society is definitely a lot harder than me getting a comment that's like, are you sure you want to eat all that? Like, you just can't compare the two. Because one is clearly worse, and I'm not trying to say that it's mine, because it isn't. Recovery was a lot easier, so much easier, when I was still wearing a size, you know what I mean? Like, when I was in those early days of recovery, obviously it was really hard in some ways, but there was this kind of bliss period where I was like, I have food freedom, I feel amazing, I can eat whatever I want, and I don't have like this eating disorder voice anymore. But then when I became like overweight, it didn't feel good anymore, and it felt like I was doing something wrong, and I felt bad about my body, and I didn't feel good in my skin. I didn't feel like recovery was worth it, and that is a really big truth bomb for me. Is like, are you still willing to commit to recovery even when you're not skinny anymore? And that's a really difficult question, and I think we kind of have these like black and white ways that we talk about eating disorder recovery, where like no one has ever regretted recovering, no one has ever like recovered from an eating disorder and regretted it, or like no one misses their eating disorder, or like there are moments where you miss it. For me, and I know there are for a lot of people, and there are moments where you're like, life would be so much easier if I was in a smaller body, or if people still were like concerned about how I ate or what I looked like. And I think that's something that can be really difficult to give up. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't know if I'm 100% ready to give that up. Like, am I willing to have complete food freedom, no food rules, no anything like that, if it means that I'm going to be overweight? Maybe not. And I know that's not what I should say, I know that's not how I should feel, but it's where I am, and I feel like it's real, and I think those questions are really important to ask ourselves. And as we move forward, we need to think about, do I value happiness and freedom and living an unrestricted life, or do I value more how I look? And I feel like I almost want to cry like saying that, because I don't want to feel the way that I do. But I'm working on it. I'm in therapy. I'm not in a dangerous place behavior-wise or like weight-wise. And I've just kind of accepted that I might never have a fully healed or healthy or good relationship with food or my body. And unfortunately, I do think that is where a lot of us end up. And I think there's some people who document recovery and make it seem like it's all sunshine and rainbows and life is completely happy after you recover, but sometimes it's still really, really hard. And even like years down the line, or like where you're completely weight restored, which like I am and then some, it's sometimes difficult to still commit to making the pro-treatment choice. But that's where I am. It's something that I kind of wanted to get off my chest because I know I'm not alone in it. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video or that it resonated with you in some way. Actually, I hope it didn't, because this is not a fun topic and it's not something that I want anyone to feel like. But I think there is this side to it that's very difficult, and obviously recovery is the right choice to make. It's the healthiest choice to make, but I just wanted to kind of shine a light on how it's sometimes also a really difficult decision to make, and it's one that you have to continue making each and every day. And yeah, I want to get to a point where I consistently make that choice, because I know that's what's best for me and for everyone around me, and I know it's what's best for you. And you do too. So, yeah. Give me ice and fire.